Greetings. I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. I am grateful that you are here with us today. You are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. Sam is here again for episode number 3. Sam, thank you for being here with us once again. What's going on?
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Of course.
Just the usual.
Just the usual. So I was like, I can't ask you how you're doing again because it's like it can become one of those like throwaway questions, and it should
Yeah,
be
yeah,
a
yeah.
genuine. When I ask you how you are, it should be genuine, and it is
Absolutely.
genuine, but it also can feel throwaway.
Absolutely.
So this is how overthinkers think about how are you.
Yep. Don't we know it?
Okay, speaking of being overthinker, let's make our life easier by turning off the camera and the
So,
ring light. I don't know about you, but I just found that it's so hard to it's different. Like if we're in person and we were talking, like I could kind of like look away and you'd still know I was looking at you. But I feel like on Zoom, I could be looking away and I could be watching TV. Like you have to really show like in a performative way that's genuine, but like that I am listening. And I feel like
right.
it can get very tiring. I don't know if you
Yes.
okay. So that's why
Yes.
hence
Absolutely.
the you know.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna talk about Adora's film, and then we'll jump into the conversation we started in between the sets.
Let's do it.
So the film was filmed in and by the way, if you go back to one of the previous intermissions, Adora was a surprise guest. And she talked about the film.
Awesome.
So it's she says sleep training meets social justice. That's how she describes it. It's a short film, and it was recorded in our old apartment in September 2020. So imagine the context of September 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a full family affair. I have never done anything in film. I have no interest in film, but I was made assistant director that day and was helping with all that kind of stuff. And my mother-in-law became the catering director as she made food for all the actors and all of us. And there's a baby in it, so there were scenes where my daughter made her acting debut as well.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
it was it was really awesome. I've one of my things that upsets me so much. I think that Adora is one of the most creative and brilliant people I've ever met, and
Mm-hmm.
that her films will change the world and make people a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But the threshold for giving a black woman that first shot is so huge
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, random white guys keep getting the opportunities, and it's so frustrating. So
Yep.
that's
Indeed.
my let's see, minute and 50 seconds talk about Adora's film. Is there anything specifically? And yes, it's won a lot of awards and film debuts, and it was just here at the LA Film Festival, and Adora shared, although this is gonna come out in December. I don't know if I've mentioned that to you. We should have been saying, I always forget that we're recording these in August. So hopefully the SAG AFTRA protests have gotten
Mm-hmm.
the writers and creatives what they deserve.
Right.
So we do stand with them, but this is going to come out in December, so who knows what life is going to look like then.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Is another movie from Medora on the horizon?
There is another film that she did that centers around kind of like a coming of age for somebody who is Igbo, which is from where in Nigeria Adora is from.
Okay.
But other than that, hopefully by the time December comes around, that there will be another thing. But everything's kind of on hold right now while while the contracts are worked out, so writers get their due.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds awesome. My biggest congratulations to her.
Thank you.
Of
Okay,
course.
was there, should we kind of jump back into what we had started to talk about off while we were in between recordings, or do you want
Sure.
to talk about, okay, so you had started by asking me if what you were saying was clear. Do you want me to recap, or do you want to just start?
No, you can go ahead and recap, and then we can.
Where you were saying how when I was talking about people's relationship with accountability, where that can come from, and then you were sharing like, yes, and you, it can't be an excuse for the impact that you can have as an ally, and not as an ally, like the impact it has on people. You were asking if that was clear, if that made sense, right?
Right. So the
And
reason
so,
that I was
go ahead. Yes.
asking that is because I am working through my relationship with, not my relationship necessarily, or let's say, yes, my relationship in addition to other factors with folks who have been or have said they have been allies to me, to other people, to the movement, to the world at large, to young humans, et cetera, right? And sometimes, not always, but sometimes I find myself questioning whether allyship is a mystery or if it is a myth. And I don't know yet. All I know for the time being, one of the points that you made earlier was we are all an ally to somebody or the other somewhere in this world through one or more of our identities. And you're absolutely right about that. We're all allies to somebody or the other. The struggle, however, is in a lot of these allyship categories, because our many relationships perhaps are so fraught with toxicity and mistrust, and I'm not talking about systemic relationships, I'm talking about interpersonal relationships that you brought up last time. So many of our interpersonal relationships are fraught with so many different things that don't necessarily see us or build us or cultivate us. One of the words that you used, I think, was nurture, and I really like that, or nurture us as full human beings. We tend to then, in our allyship, not only bring the results or the remnants of those poorly sustained relationships into our work as allies, but we also have a high tendency to use those remnants or results of those poorly handled relationships as excuses to continue to perform harm. And that is a fine line that I find so few people are ready or willing or even aware of enough to walk. And I know it's an unpopular opinion to say allyship is a myth, but who cares? I'm full of unpopular opinions and everybody knows this about me. I think so much of allyship is in fact rooted in that, it's already rooted in that toxicity. It takes a high level of self-awareness to work through it and step out of it. And I think that is a huge part of the work that people refuse to do. People are resistant to doing. And in that same vein, have a tendency more to further make toxic these social justice spaces by using those excuses or by using those reasons as excuses to persecute people who are holding them accountable. Inevitably, most of these people who are doing the accountability holding are people who are of marginalized identities. It's not like we're not villainized enough already. Now we get further villainized by people who are supposed to be standing with us for our cause. And so just layer upon layer upon layer that started with accountability, and that starts with accountability is met with resistance and then ends with further persecution, that puts entire really, really good movements in very difficult situations.
Mm. So I think that brings up the like myth part. What would you say when you say mystery? What does it mean when you say mystery?
We just haven't figured it out yet.
Okay, like how to do it. Like it's possible. We just don't know how
Maybe,
to. Okay.
maybe it's possible. We just haven't figured it out yet. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the reason why I say mystery or myth is because of those layers, right? It's not simple, you know? It's not, hey, here's this 12-point program. If you follow each and every one of these steps, and if you check off each and every one of these boxes, you will get allyship 100% right. A magical certificate from the mythical school of allyship will arrive at your mailbox. And furthermore, in the future, you will never misstep in allyship ever again, right? That's never going to happen. It's a constant learning process. However, I think there is a lot of, I think as allies, we have to be responsible in recognizing the intentionality with which we bring systems into the way that we perform allyship that is dangerous. Okay. And I'll break it down for you like this. A year or two ago, on May 14th, there was a national day of action after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Tampa Bay also took part in that action. I was one of the organizers who took part in that action. It was a massive Bands Off Our Bodies protest. Now, among the people who organized this protest were representatives from 23 different organizations. Okay, 23 established organizations or groups. And then there was another about 4 of us individuals who were not representing any groups. We were just local community activists, right? We're doing this Bands Off Our Bodies protest. We have about 3,000 people out there doing this incredible protest. I was emceeing. We had speakers and we had calls to action, and we had a whole bunch of people, whole bunch of organizations tabling for the cause. And I was emceeing the entire event, following which we were going to do a march. So we're doing this whole thing. And I think it was Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, were also holding a protest the next day. So they were there to support us, and they came and asked if we would announce that they were doing this protest the next day and ask people to come attend. We said 100%, absolutely, yes, we will. We're all huge supporters of freeing Palestine. And we were more than happy as an intersectional event to introduce another event and ask people, give people resources to go and support this other event that was happening the next day. On the mic, I announced that this event was happening, fully encouraged, gave a full-throated encouragement of people to go attend this event. As the next speaker was speaking, this older, seemingly white lady approaches me and says, "Excuse me, I need to talk to you for a minute." Very strict tone of voice, very commanding. And I said, "Okay, what can I do for you?" And she goes, "That announcement that you just made." And I was like, "Which one?" We were making many announcements. The announcement on Palestine was merely one of them. "Which one?" I said. And she goes, "The whole thing about Palestine." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "You don't need to do that here." And I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. What are you talking about?" She goes, "That is not what we are here for. You do not need to do that here." And I was like, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. Are you with a specific organization? Are you leadership of any organization? Is there a reason, like, why, who are you representing? Is there a reason why you're telling me not to do this?" And she goes, "Yes, I am with Planned Parenthood." She's wearing a Planned Parenthood t-shirt, points to her Planned Parenthood t-shirt, says, "Yes, I am with Planned Parenthood." Now, let me be clear. Planned Parenthood was there with us. I had met every last one of their representatives who was working with us in an official capacity. I knew all of them. We'd been working together for the last 2 weeks, day in and day out, putting together this event, right? But she says she's with Planned Parenthood. So I said, okay. And she goes, you don't need to do all of that. That is not required here. And I was like, ma'am, there are many Palestinian women and other humans with uteruses who are here at this event who I'm fairly confident would disagree with you. That's not something that I want to tell any of the people here who are also in the fight for Palestine. She goes, well, you can tell them that this is not the place for that. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to do that. She goes, well, once again, this is not the event for that. If they want to have their own event, they can do that. And I was like, and they are. I was simply letting people know where it was going to be. Once again, she says, this is not the place for that, and you need to keep that in mind. I will be talking to somebody. Great. Says her piece, and she leaves, right? Let's break this down. I checked with Planned Parenthood. She was not with Planned Parenthood. I love volunteers. I've worked in nonprofit for a nonprofit for a very long time. Volunteers are the backbones of most nonprofits. However, in this case, she was a volunteer. She was not representing Planned Parenthood as an organization on their stance when it comes to Palestine. She was not a member of the organizing staff as she represented herself to be. Keep in mind, 23 organizations worked tirelessly day and night for 2 weeks putting this event together. Many of us are working on this event on our own time. We are not working on this event because it is a paid gig. We are working from a purely passion-based place, right? And this human comes up, seeks out, there were 2 of us emceeing, I was one of them, but she sought out the person of color who was the MC, didn't ask me if it was appropriate for us to be sharing information about Palestine, but ordered me never to do it again, right? So you have to think about the intentionality with which this message is coming through. In that space, she was an ally, whether she realized it or not, to a lot of different people. We were talking about intersectionality at that event. We were talking about globalization at that event. We were talking about how Roe v. Wade impacts not just us here in the US, but folks across borders. And the whole time, this human was standing right up there in front, right in front of me, shaking her head the entire time. But the moment we brought one demographic that she does not support up, she felt like it was okay for her to step up to the plate, order us not to talk about that anymore, misrepresent herself as being part of an organization that she was not a part of, and completely dismiss the fact that this event has been put on by people who've been working day in and day out to do it, to actually have it done, so that people like her could come be a part of something larger than themselves, right? And so it behooves me the degree to which people will use the system to be able to make a point or a stand or a stance for themselves without even thinking twice about the manner in which they are further marginalizing other people. And when I say further marginalizing other people, I'm not talking about Palestine. I am not talking about SPJ. I am talking about the people who organize the event, right? And the manner in which folks will, if you will, weaponize the system to get what they want. And from that space, I think to myself, everybody always says, I didn't do it on purpose. I did it unintentionally. I had no idea that that's what I was doing. And yet you seem to have really solid steps in place to demand that the people who are actually working the event do it in a way that you feel comfortable with. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You see the layers of systems that are coming into play?
I do.
That's what I'm talking about.
Ooh. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, Sam.
That's the hard part, fam. You know?
Which part?
being on the receiving end of that kind of
Mm.
behavior, that will then be simplified into, I was not trying to do that on purpose.
Mm.
And yet you see, when you're on the receiving end of things like that on the regular, you see very clearly the steps that are being taken in order to put that behavior into place, in order to support that behavior. Like the steps that she's taking to support her own behavior, right?
Mhm.
And so there's an intentionality behind that unintentionality.
I like that phrase. And I think another one we could add in there, like a comfort or an ease or a I think this is a word that has been used incorrectly, but an entitlement to it.
Correct.
This is where I belong.
Yep. And I have every right to tell you how to do what you are doing, despite the fact that I have not been any part of it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you have many more examples like this, is what I heard you
I could
sharing
come
that
up
too.
with at least
Mhm.
8 off the top of my head.
Mm.
Right. And you're welcome to, if you have any pushback.
If I the if I have pushback on if allyship's a myth or a mystery.
If you have any pushback on that behavior specific to that example, based on what you heard, I'd be happy to talk through it.
No, I don't.
Mm.
That was I spent a lot of time at a nonprofit that specifically worked on conflict mediation between Muslims and Jews around Israel and Palestine.
Mm.
And to me, and for those listening, I don't, while we're talking about Palestine, I don't think that it's like, this is a different example, if that makes sense. This is not that. Like, it could have been, and I feel like it could have been anything that person disagreed with. And
Correct.
also it's kind of like a little bit of a putting you in your place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's good to have a brown person here speaking about something that I believe in because intersectionality, but then as soon as you get out of line, as soon as you try to push it past what this person believes should be right and into things that are going to challenge them, that's a lot of time. And we can kind of like move outside of this specific example, but like that's where it's like, no, 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 get back in your place. Like that's too far.
Correct. Correct. And that is the doubt with, that is where and again, right? Like I can only use my own lived experience. I'm not the kind of person that, I don't do this whole benefit of the doubt thing. Uh, I rely on people's actions to inform my opinion of them. It's not my right or my responsibility to give anybody the benefit of the doubt in any way, shape, or form. That's just my mentality. So with a lot of what I've seen with allyship, it lacks depth. And I don't appreciate that. Our movements are incredibly complex. Marginalized populations and their individual experiences, as well as their collective experiences, are incredibly unique. And the simplicity with which allyship both expects marginalized communities to receive their allyship and to excuse their allyship is more representative of the majority communities than it is of the marginalized community that it claims to be supporting.
Mm.
And that once again centers the majority community and not the marginalized community. And that feels just like just another work of white supremacy. And I'm really not interested in engaging it.
I mean, and a lot of the things you're saying are it's generous because to me it gives me the opportunity to ask myself questions. I like how you said it lacks depth and how it often reflects the values and demands of the majority anyways.
Right.
It's a little bit like using you as a tool to salve my guilt. I'm right. I'm doing a good job though, Sam. Like it you're not talking about me though, right? Like this is
Mm-hmm.
like affirm me. Affirm
For
me.
me. For me. Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You've got that. You've got that down pat.
Yeah. I don't know if there's ever an arriving at an ally title. I don't think there's ever an arriving. I don't know if you're ever there.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And especially because the conversation around, I'm gonna try to say a weird phrase, like liberation is a live thing. It's constantly moving, and people's creativity and depth is moving it too. And I think a hard part is like, but it's always in reaction to,
Something.
yes, like it's, there wouldn't have to be a demand for liberation if there wasn't oppression and subjugation and bondage, and a pushing to dehumanize people. Like it is like a, that is not who I am. Like recognize who I am as a human with my rights and systemically. And so it's, and the tools that are in place to make sure that doesn't happen are also evolving in step to try to prevent that.
Right.
So it's, maybe what in 2005 looked like allyship now and would be like a thanks for showing up and wow. It's like there also is a level of, there's not like a sense of urgency from like annihilation. Like there isn't the time, there isn't the uh, bandwidth to hold your hand, because we are literally being killed out here.
Correct.
On a systemic and automatic level.
And I don't think there's ever been the time or ever been the bandwidth for that.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You know? And I always wonder, if those folks who call themselves allies continue to, do they actually not know what they're doing, or do they keep doing it because without, well, let me say this properly. Do allies actually want liberation for marginalized communities? Because if marginalized communities acquire liberation, then how will they be allies?
And how will you be able to buy the things you buy for the price you buy?
Right.
And how will you be able to have access to the best schools and the best neighborhoods and the best food and the and the and the and the.
Because there won't be a best, right? It'll be acquirable for all. Yeah.
So
I mean,
just in case,
so much of your identity is built upon being a good majority community human. And so much of that is built upon what you do for other people. If people no longer need you to do anything for them, then who are you? I think there's a lot of that centering thought.
I do. Is there anything that would be helpful for me to summarize, or you want me to help clarify or reverberate or speak from on me, or any questions, anything I can do in being in this with you in this conversation?
No, I think folks get it. I think the folks that get it get it. I think the folks that will question, and then the folks that don't will not. I don't think I'm sharing this with you because, again, we are having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sharing this with you because I feel the need to do the work to help people be better allies. That's not my calling. That's not what I do. it's also sincerely not my belief that I have any right or responsibility to better anybody. That's all of our journey for ourselves. And in the communities that we are in, all of that, bettering humans, investing in humans comes with a degree of consent, a degree of accountability. It comes with a lot of conversation around what that looks like and so on and so forth. But I think for me, a huge part of the reason why I am sharing this with you is because for those humans who are serious about solidarity, for those of us humans who might be serious about solidarity and allyship, it feels really defeatist to have to think about the possibility that allies don't exist and nobody really wants to support you in what you are doing because everyone's just out for themselves. But that is a thought process that happens. It feels defeatist, and yet it is necessary to be able to think through that from a safety perspective, to know who your people are and not make the mistake of putting yourself in a space that is dangerous with a person that is not going to have you back. So that's why I am sharing that I think about these things. And these are the kinds of things that I overthink about. Speaking of overthinkers.
Well, obviously we're talking about it because I'm with you there. I think about them, but from the perspective of the person, I don't really use the word ally, but trying to have your back and trying to have systemic back. That's a weird phrase. I'm not an ally. I'm a systemic have your backer. But it is complex. How do you have someone's back without it being self-serving, without it being for the optics, without it being I want you to validate my ego.
And I think a lot of folks need to sit with that question before they try to answer it.
And for me, two of my most important relationships, my wife and my daughter, it's one that I need to ask every day to make sure that I'm not turning my daughter into some sort of prop or my wife into some sort of symbol, well, look at me, And I think it's both the interpersonal and the systemic. If I'm going to say I have somebody's back, do I? And that's why I really kind of keep my mouth shut, because I think depends on the situation. I'm a mystery or a myth.
Right.
I don't know if I'm a very good, and this is not for you too. I'm not saying this as a fishing for affirmation. So it's just the preface. Like I don't know if I'm a very good ally. I really ask myself that often, especially the more focused I become in how I spend my time with less and less people and doing less and less things and working from home and you can be kind in your relationships around you, and those relationships can be diverse, so it can feel like you're part of the solution. But what about the systemic? And that is always, to me, the question that it's like, yes, but systemically, what am I doing? And I do not have an answer to that.
Yeah. I also, would implore folks to think about, like you said, if you do have somebody's back, what does that mean? And have you communicated that with them? It can mean a lot of different things, right? But I think it requires a lot of thinking through and a lot of conversation to be like, here are the various ways in which I can absolutely have you back. Here are the ways in which, depending on the situation, I can have you back. Here are the ways in which I can't, because I don't have it.
It's interesting. After around 2020, I started to notice that a way I could have my friends back is by not coming around. And that sounds like strange, but you're always the wild card when you're the white person in the room. Like, because you could have, like, I feel I have worked through most of my explicit bias, but the danger of implicit bias is it's often going to require somebody being impacted by your implicit bias telling you the impact. So it's like, then you can be gracious in receiving it and that's good there, not a making like crying, oh, I'm so, but still like to learn that lesson, that person had to experience it and go, oh, wow, Tom, I need to tell you about this.
Right.
So like it had to be. And so sometimes it's like, I can't risk that. I can't risk accidentally, unintentionally, even if you're gracious in receiving when I give you feedback. I can't risk that. My heart does not have the space for that today or this year or ever again.
Right.
And so sometimes loving my friends meant accepting that.
Right. Yeah.
So I support your line of thinking, Sam, and taking care of yourself, and I'm with you.
I hear you, Sam. I don't even know if I support my line of thinking. It's just a line of thinking. That's all. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't support it in like, let's write a book. Let's get you on the speaking circuit. Let's coin a phrase, myth or mystery. Allies, you pieces of shit. You suck. Like, I'm not like, but I'm like, these like the whole like we did not plan any of this. The whole reason why we're here is to like, what's going to come up, and this is what's coming up. And so
right.
I am imagining you're not the only one that it's coming up for. And for those of us who like whatever word we're going to use around having your back, allies, like this is the stuff that then I need to go on 8-hour hikes and ask myself, right? And if it's uncomfortable, where in me is it uncomfortable? Like to me, it's like, it's very helpful, right?
Right.
It's like, it either feels like a mystery or a myth. Okay, well, that's helpful because at best, we're not doing it right. That is the at best. Okay, so let me back to the drawing board, and
right.
And it makes sense, like, because creativity, imagination, they're absolutely going to be impacted by conditioning and socialization. And so when you're thinking of how to support somebody, when you're trying to be creative, when you're trying to be in relationship, it's going to be in you. And it so quickly takes back over the work that you have done if you aren't diligent. Like it's so quickly.
Yep. It's so sneaky and it's so fast.
Yes.
100%. Even being in an interracial marriage, right? Interracial queer marriage, my partner and I had to have so many conversations about what that looks like and what allyship looks like for both of us individually. She is a femme individual. I'm a masculine individual. What does it look like for her, for me to have her back when, we're at a bar and she gets hit on by a dude? Like, I don't know that she wants me to, I didn't know if she wanted me to intervene until I asked her, is that something you would want me to do? Or you'll handle it and you'll call me if you need something, right? Something as simple as that. Happens very commonly, but if you don't ask the question, you're not getting the answer. Same way with her and her family, who have accepted us. Don't get me wrong, they've accepted us with open arms, but they are a conservative-leaning family. And so stuff comes up, right? People say things. And so we've talked about what does it look like for me to respond? In what situations will I be comfortable responding? What is our code or look or whatever it is? How do we communicate with each other when we know? When we've reached that point where I'm like, I don't want to handle this anymore, but I do want you to interrupt this behavior. Right? And had we not talked about it, we never would have known. And even we find that with each interaction with the world, with her family, with somebody else, what we need changes. And so we constantly talk about that change too, across intersectionality.
I think why don't we take this part, and if we're going to get our last episode in, we should head towards wrapping up. But I do like the asking and taking direction from the other person. I do think that that's a very implementable example.
100%.
Okay, Sam, is there anything you want to say to wrap up before we go into glorious self-promotion?
Nope, I think it's great.
All right. Tell the good folks out there how they can tell you they appreciate you and work with you. And do all
right, folks. Find me at my website at samiraobeid.com, SAMIRAOBEID.com. You can use either Sam Obeid or Samira Obeid to find me on all socials. You can also just go to my website and click on my social media links to take you directly to my social media page. I'm pretty much on every single social media platform, I think, for the most part. You could also sign up for my monthly newsletter on my website, or if you would like to contact me to hire me to do some poetry or workshop or equity and justice trainings, whatever that looks like for y'all, we could talk about it. We can customize it. Please feel free to reach out to me at Samira Obeid LLC at gmail.com. SAMIRA OBEID LLC at gmail.com.
Yes, indeed. Sam and I have been friends now for officially a decade. And I love your poetry. I shared on the last episode that who you are at the beginning and who you are at the end of a poem, you're not the same person. And, a lot of these concepts that we've been talking about, I think one of the power of art is it can reach into places that our intellectual mind can't grasp. And that can point the way towards what we're reaching for in such a powerful way. So please check out Sam's poetry. Bring Sam to a venue near you for both a feature and also for facilitating a poetry workshop. Here at the Celebration, we host a monthly journaling workshop. It is process-oriented, which means we are doing it for the process, not to create anything special or magical, but because you deserve that time with yourself to reflect and to be held in a community that fosters belonging. And every month, I create a private audio podcast for you to work through and a monthly journal. You can find that tomearl.me/DCM invite, or that stands for Direct Connect Method. All right, Sam, what's your invitation?
Let's see. My invitation this time around is going to be hella simple. I invite people to do better.
I'm going to give a shout out for a book. You should check out the book Cast. I think it's by Dr. Isabel Wilkerson. I think it's if you're looking to do reading, have you read that book, Sam? Have you read Cast?
I have not. I'm looking at it. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, she basically compares systemic racism here to the Indian caste system. Phenomenal book. Check it out. Sam, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. I'm sure it's not easy or comfortable talking through this stuff, and it's recorded. So gratitude to you, my friend. Gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
And to all those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.